Next, we're going to see if this goes live, and says we have an excellent connection, and there we are. So that means we're going to go to the channel, see if there's any connectivity going on there, and this means we have to go back to live part 2, and hopefully we get an echo. I can hear myself. There we are.
And
So
everybody
that means we're
upvote.
going to go to the channel. There we go, and then I'll
See
start
if
the
there's
call.
any-
And with that, we're going to go back to the call itself and do an infinite, though I believe we're only going to have one respondent, but others are welcome to join. Okay, so that would include anybody, of course, who sends me a contact request while we're live. And there we are. Sammy Romero, you're back. And Aristides, you're back. So, yeah, let's continue where we left off, dear Aristides and Sammy. First off, Aristides, just say hi to everyone so we can make certain that you're registering on OBS.
Hi, yeah, go for it. Am I registering? And everybody hit the thumbs up or upvote.
Thank you, and you're registering perfectly. Let's see if your technology is working, Sammy. Say hi, if you could. Be so
Hey,
kind.
what's going on, guys?
It's okay.
Hey, what's going on?
Okay. All right. So let's continue where we left off. And yes, by all means, yeah, both of you gentlemen, I love you both. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're just gonna start right back where we left off. And Holly, we're joined by Holly. So hi, say hi, Holly.
No, that's weird. I was just calling to say, is everything okay? Because the phone rang.
Okay. Yeah.
And rang. And so I thought, shit, is
Well,
everything okay? So
what
I picked
happened
up.
was Brendan Zogit made a wrong call because when I got the notification, it's understandable that he made a wrong call. Based on what I showed him in settings, it did not look like we were
That's
facing
fine.
any immediate threat. However, based on experience, he should have guessed what it was, and we should have taken it as an immediate threat, which is what it was, is that my computer and the online broadcasting software somehow are so intimately linked in a technical manner that I do not understand at all, that the shows are backed up on my computer, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
If we didn't have Aristides backing them up. Yeah, if we didn't have Aristides backing them up on his computer, this would be the only backup I would have, and I would have to have somebody do what John Warrington used to do. Aristides is doing what John Warrington used to do. So
yes, storing.
Storing.
Storing data.
And so because of that, my computer does it as a backup, which is important until they get downloaded by someone like John Warrington or Aristides. And the end result is that it piles up. And the only time it's going to happen is when you're on air, is it's going to say that there's insufficient room on the disk of the computer for OBS to continue transmitting, which is just, I have no idea.
Knife in the heart. It's happened before, but it's a knife in the heart. Cannot transmit. Warning.
Well,
Jesus.
I don't understand how one is connected to the other, but somehow it is.
Yeah.
And but the other experts out there can someday explain it. But the one thing I can tell you is that last time I was able to delete a bunch of past episodes while on air and still transmitting, which I would have done tonight, but Brendan Zogit made the wrong call based on what he saw. The information that was provided was misleading. It was confusing and misleading. It looked like there was plenty of space left, like this could be left till tomorrow to deal with. That's not what happened. And so the reality is we have to take it when this sort of but here's the part, is that the computer was asking me to basically give permission to an app, the computer system, rather Microsoft. Microsoft is also intimately connected in this whole thing. So there's 3 things involved here that are somehow so intimately interconnected, so inextricably linked. But the way Microsoft was going to deal with it was by asking me to give permission for Microsoft to basically do something to alter the computer itself. And so
Jesus.
that's why Brendan said no. That was the original display, which you did not see because I couldn't screen share when that option was on. There was no alternative but to either select that option or refuse it. In other words, select it or close the window. And I closed the window so that I could screen share, but I didn't feel good about selecting that option anyway, and Brendan said that was a no-go. But it's where Microsoft would have altered the status of the computer itself somehow in order to deal with this. And
hey, they want my passwords when I'm trying to hook up Netflix, just another night. Fuckers. They're always trying to get in there.
I don't understand. Aren't they already in there?
They are, but they want me to prove.
And
I'm like, fuck you, motherfuckers. And so I X out.
Yeah. So the point was
so I understand what you're trying to do. Just ignore that shit.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
because how much power do they have? Well, it remains to be seen.
Well,
here you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Based on that.
It's fucking with you.
Yeah. Well, based on that verbal, and our man Aristides just dropped off. Hopefully he'll pop back on. But based on just the verbal description of what I described, Brendan said, do not go for that. Then I was able to share screen when I X'd out the window. And then once I shared screen, like I said, it was a deceptive display. And the display did not give us the reality, which is the disk is full. And because the disk gets full, it just gets too full. And then nothing else can work.
Damn it.
But the tragedy is that this can only happen when you're transmitting. There's no other way to deal with it because you will never get that display otherwise because you'll never be using that much power. In other words,
and dude, it's not even video. This is just audio.
Yeah, that's right. It
takes nothing.
Yeah, yeah. So
it's like you need another stack next to your computer or something like in the old days that can hold a little more. Jesus.
Yeah, well, it's a good computer, but it's a comparatively small computer. But that being said, it wouldn't matter, no matter how big the computer is.
Not like you're gaming. I mean, Jesus.
But at some point, because it's double backing up these episodes, it gets full. So at some point we get full. So at some point when I'm transmitting, it's going to be doing this. But either way, I was not able to get back in contact with Brendan, so I had to handle the deletion by myself. So I had to go in there.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, I had to see. So Brendan, once he checked out. And so I was unable to reestablish contact with him, took a bit of a break, had a bit of a talk with Aristides. Are
we still online?
We're broadcasting. Yeah, we're transmitting.
Yeah. Okay. So who just left? Brendan and Sammy?
No, Sammy's with us, and Aristides just rejoined. He dropped off for a second but came back. But Brendan never came back. Once he left, he left.
Got it.
And
in the shower, baby.
Yeah.
He didn't want to electrocute himself.
Yeah, his biorhythm is changing. So his biorhythm's changing radically these days. But
it's the height of summer.
Yeah, but just so everyone knows, at some point in some transmission, every few months, this is just going to happen where I have to try and handle it while I'm on air, which I successfully did once. But this time, because Brendan's input was misdirected, he made a wrong call, and I had to do it myself. Go in there and, without his guidance, delete a bunch of episodes, except for one that has not yet been recorded by Aristides, and 2 of the latest ones. So I left 2 of the latest ones up.
Thank you, Aristides.
Yeah, and so the one that was not recorded by Aristides.
Okay, good. So you kept last Wednesday and the one before.
2 of those, and and I had to keep one from Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, which is the one that George Knight got scrubbed. He called in on that one, and believe me, our main game stalker at this point is George Knight. He's the one who is just sitting there, just waiting to pounce on anything to report. So everybody has to be extraordinarily careful about the language that they use. And
he's getting paid.
He always was. Yeah. And that was that being said, So I want Douglas Marks has rejoined us. I can hear you loud and clear. God us bless you, Douglas Marks. So that being said, we'll start back into it soon enough. But yeah, by all means, Sammy's welcome to segue us back in. We'll get back into the mood, and I do want everyone to understand that as far as my biological father Adolf Hitler was concerned, understand that when it comes to the identity of the indigenous peoples of the Americas, they were always considered to be Aryan by...
I'm going to step off, Doug,
yeah.
but I'm listening.
Well,
Thank
we
you.
love you dearly. Anytime you want to, just jump back on to interject, okay?
I will.
Yeah. So understand...
I'm glad everything's okay.
Yes. Yes, thank
Amen.
you. Well,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you,
that,
Lord.
that profoundly. Yes.
Carry on.
Yes.
Is the street quieter?
Oh, no, it got quiet as soon as I got into the reinterred in the crypt. It all died down.
Yeah.
And they all went away.
All right.
Yeah, and so that only adds to the suspicion that
I know.
Yeah, that's
eerie.
Yeah, that's like because once I'm inside, it's like, at that point I'm impregnable. They can't come in because they're
That's right.
There's multiple factors that impede that.
That's right.
Yeah, it's there we have that. It's just a but thank you for asking about that, because it's an important point. People might not have caught that or assumed that. So
no fireworks?
Yeah. There were, last night there were fireworks, and it was, from what I understand now, this is from my neighbors because I wasn't here. I actually, over the weekend, because of the Pulse nightclub Remembrance Day, was in Orlando. So that was where it was raining, and there were storms. So, and yet it was still 90 degrees. So
bunch of duds.
Yeah, and but it's but when it comes to the here, I heard that from my neighbors there were fireworks or gunshots. You can't tell. You can never tell. So whether that was Flag Day or the San Francisco is not a Flag Day city, so I can't expect that. It must have been soccer.
But I love ghetto fireworks.
Yes,
I just do.
Yes.
And Oakland sure is, and there's special towns in the Central Coast that it's a tradition.
Yes.
So and now the drone thing is just killing it.
Yes. The I hear you. Now it's killing it. How? By like what?
By sending people a month later $2,000 fines.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. But I don't know, something about it I always respected.
Oh.
And and it's sad, but
yes,
that's why I asked.
And
even the Seaside Police said we're trying to settle out this tradition. The cops called it a tradition, okay?
Yes, that's
so
cool.
You gotta know. Yes. And it's all weeping and moaning because it hurts veterans. The one day of the year, and
because they're PTSD.
Yeah, and I understand how that could be disturbing, but it's the only day of the year they ever worry about the veterans, and I know a lot of veterans shooting them off.
Honey, they worry about the veterans all too goddamn much. I'm one of them myself, and I just
that's complicated.
I would freak out with would freak out with the fireworks, but you just learn to huddle under the bed.
And I'm sympathetic to that. Entirely.
But you would just learn to handle it, okay? Because there's days when there's fireworks. It's just like there's always gunfire. It's like what are they gonna do if there's gunfire? They're fucking veterans. What are they supposed to do then? Just freak out rather than respond with some kind of combat reflex? Come on, be a fucking man up.
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, a lot of them really enjoy it, for better or worse.
Yes, no, but that having been said, love you dearly. Feel free to jump back on anytime you feel like it. And
thank you.
all
right.
this
Keep
is
on. Keep on.
so
You're raging.
I sent Douglas Marks the wrong one. Let me see if I can delete this and remove the message and send him a correct one. At any rate, yes, I do want people to understand, just as a little based on a little talk I had in between all of this, is that Adolf Hitler considered the indigenous peoples of the Americas to be Aryan. So just understand that between the Aryans of northern India, the migrations to Japan, the Aryan peoples, Aryanism is a unity that stretches with Europe and the indigenous peoples in this sense. Let's try and think of the larger universal schematic where we're all brothers in a sense. There are cultural differences. There are cultural differences that we often, make snarky comments about with understandably so. So all of that having been said, let me give Douglas Marks here his. Oh, it's not giving me Douglas Marks. That's why it just gave Douglas Dietrich as opposed to Douglas Marks. He's not showing up. So that being said, let's continue back where we were. However, we're talking about a lot of this heritage American nonsense is where there's an elitism based on this tier concept of whiteness, where Americans are now obviously many Americans. We're disambiguating them from Europeans. We're disambiguating them from other cultures. When we especially use the prison rape anti-culture term, that is my term. I want people to understand that when they hear our man Sammy Romero say that, he is merely echoing what has always been my thesis, that America is a prison rape anti-culture. So the issue that we have, the problem with America, is that it's such a young country, unlike European cultures, which are 1,000 years old at the least. Often beyond that, you have an honest-to-God indigenous culture, but in America, there is this attempt to create a culture that has often been anti-cultural in effect. For instance, the most painful example of that is demonstrably the only way Americans can identify themselves, and have done so for generations, is to say, we hate Nazis. And everything we do is anti-Nazi. And everything I say right now is not any exaggeration. It's not some sense of self kind of insecurity based on my heritage. It's based on the fact that whether they're left or right, what do both the Republicans and Democrats, the libertarians, and the out-and-out ideological Antifa leftists, are basically communists, what do they all call each other? Nazis. They all call each other fascists and Nazis. In other words, the only definition they have for what they are is that they're not Nazis. That is how empty America is. That is the issue when we're coming at this from a cultural perspective. So in that sense, it's an anti-culture because it's only expressing itself as antithesis to something that it claims it is not, which of course it is not, because it could never be what the Nazis were. And that's a compliment to the Nazis, I assure you. But all that having been expressed, yes, back to where we were, and we can get back to our bitching and grinding to segue back to, the monologue at point. We probably will decide at some point whether or not it's worth it to go back into monologue, depending on how many people join us later tonight. But right now, let's just have some fun with it in roundtable. So take it away.
Well, to be honest with you, my snarky comments, or what I'm saying, it's based on business, okay?
Yes.
And yes, I did circle around a lot of things regarding Europe, and
well, justifiably so. We're talking about a European game that has been taken up by the rest of the world. So go on. Yes.
But we, as a nation, we have we have issues. We have daddy abandoned issues. Okay. Yes. We were traitors to the crown. I mean, my ancestry, but when I say Americans, it's people that look like Europe, quote unquote, which there's just a lot of things that I don't understand now, because it's not that I understand, it's just pointless. My point is, if anybody listens closely or looks at social media, the other countries like Mexico and Canada, who are welcoming all the countries visiting their sports complexes, which is, obviously Mexico has Azteca. I don't know what Canada has, but it might be some igloo or something, right?
I love it.
Whatever. I don't know, some maple tree. I don't know.
That's a giant
is,
igloo. Yes, I love it.
My point is, they're being welcomed. Okay, a lot of this is also bleeds into geopolitics.
Yes.
Let's just be real. It's almost like, well, everybody says, well, let's keep politics out of sports. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. Same as religion, right?
Yes.
All this is still geopolitics, to the point of Mexico is thriving off of this.
Yes.
They welcome the Japanese teams with cowboy hats and sombreros, and they are pretty much have the Iranians in Tijuana,
Yes, that's right.
TJ, and they're walking them there and rolling out the red carpet for them. All this equals soft power. This is a soft power move by Mexico. They understand, because of the previous regime, which is, I forget if it was the PIE, the PR or PIE or something like that.
That's right.
I forget the acronym.
Yeah, I do
Okay.
too. I do too.
Okay,
Yeah.
but this regime is one of the reasons why my parents had to migrate to the United States. It's because they centralize all the wealth to the 1%, almost like what's happening here, pretty much.
Yes. But
and
in Mexico, it was established
right.
through an hierarchy of successive
yeah.
European colonizations. That is one reason, when Sammy comes from an anti-colonial perspective, to understand that his parents were ultimately forced to relocate simply because you had a hierarchical system that is almost as solidified as the caste system in India, but it was based on, first, of course, with the conquistadorial establishment of the estate and hacienda system, and that ultimately solidified a kind of racial caste system that was very nuanced and very graded. But then you had the French conquest, and for a period of time, which a lot of people don't understand, this leads to the German connection with Mexico. During the wars between the Austria-Hungary and France, there was a trade, and it was an Austrian emperor that sat on the cactus throne in Mexico. It was just if you had this series of invaders, you would kind of feel the shall we say, this is why there's kind of a sense of just a presence here of that scarification. You're left with intergenerational trauma. Continue, dear Sammy.
Well, obviously, the braceros were also a big movement that brought in a lot of help.
Yes.
With the United States, and obviously they were betrayed and they were told to go back to their country, and it's a revolving cycle, right?
Yes.
Obviously, we know the story about California, how it got stolen, and pretty much the whole Southwest. But that's another story, right?
Oh,
the point is,
it was just all of America west of the Mississippi, basically. It was Mexico.
I mean,
come on.
My point is, in today's time, FIFA is really just that. It's all about international relationships.
Yes.
And what our president is doing is pretty much not allowing us to have that type of environment. What do I mean by that? We're not welcoming none of these teams, even the European teams.
Yeah.
We're not welcoming them here. Europe is not really being welcomed. And unfortunately, it's because, we're dealing with a narcissist individual who is on a deathbed.
Yes.
The fact that we have pretty much a circus going on in the front south lawn of the White House. By the way, nobody watches UFC, okay? Nobody. Okay. You have to understand how backwards Donald Trump is. You do not throw anything, to compete with FIFA. You don't do that, okay? You just don't. The NBA, the National Basketball Association had to cut their game short. They gave pretty much their championship to the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
They had to do it. Why? Because of scheduling conflicts. You don't compete with FIFA.
Yeah.
And this is what we have right now.
Yes.
We've been detaining a lot of teams that are of color. A lot of the African teams. There was a referee from Somalia who is a very famous referee who got denied.
That's right.
And got sent back to his country. You have to understand the politics of what FIFA did to kind of appease Trump in a way, but it's almost like Trump said, "Oh, okay, you licked my ass. I'll let you have your games here." They gave Trump a medal.
It was
pretty much
it went way beyond that, but go on.
No, they gave him a plastic make-believe Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes.
MείμΜΣΔy.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
What they did is they got a Coke can and they cut the bottom of it. They put some dental floss on it and put it on his. They might as well should have done that. Okay. All right. And they should have gave him a Burger King crown too, because that's the limits they had to do to ease the political tension. And it involves politics. This is all geopolitics. But unfortunately, this also is business. We were not prepared for FIFA. We're not going to be prepared for the Olympics if this orange Cheetos in office. It's going to be this is going to be a blunder, This really should be this should be an economic boom, okay? Yeah. This is one of the reasons why you cannot have a president who is only a president for a Republican or a Democrat. It shouldn't. That's not how things should work. Because as much as I will never visit any Midwest state, really, I'm not going to visit Kansas City. What is there? What is there? What is there in Missouri? I don't visit Missouri, but you have to put lipstick on a pig, and this is about revenue. This is about, we need to put these these shithole states that we have, we need to at least put them on the map to where it's some type of revenue. We need to inject all this into a lot of these states because they're welfare states.
And no, they really are. Red states are welfare states. That we could say is with we can say this definitively. Blue states are the money states, and red states are the welfare states. Continue. Yes.
And you have Los Angeles, you have New York, you have all these metropolis that they're part of the cosmopolitan world of cities. You name it, right? Tokyo, all these, Paris, you name it, right? My point is, this represents, right now, the biggest event going on in the world. And unfortunately, this is also a nexus into a very dangerous, and the next 3 to 4 weeks is going to be very dangerous because a lot of things can happen in the sense of our president.
Yes.
This also could be a stage for him to act up.
Yes.
You know, he already is trying to push his authority on just the event because it's overshadowing his birthday. It's overshadowing the 250th year of our nation. And unfortunately, in my opinion, this 250 years is nothing to sneeze at. You know,
Right.
compared to the Japanese Empire, hell, compared to the Ottoman Empire,
Yes.
which is, you know, technically no longer extinct, but it doesn't matter. You know,
Yeah. It's
we should be.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Continue. No. Continue. We should be.
We should be focused more on making the United States more of a global empire that we're supposed to be. We're a global empire. This is no longer 1776. You cannot isolate yourself and say it's just soccer. It doesn't work that way no more. When you've raped and pillaged and killed as much as we did, we have bases all over the world.
Yes.
You're an empire now.
Yes.
So you cannot have a hermit kingdom. That's not how things work. Alexander the Great did not act this way. Why? Because he understood what an empire is.
Yes.
You need to. We're no longer the good old US of A, 13 colonies. You know, we're not. What is that dumb movie? The Notre Dame movie. We're not. That football movie.
It's
You know what I'm talking
any
about,
other
right?
hints? Any other clues? Some other hints or clues.
The Notre Dame movie. I'll find it right now. But
the Notre Dame movie. Notre Dame. I can't remember. There's so many football films.
Right. Don't worry about it. I'm not quizzing you. I'll get it. But my point is, we're no longer the 13 colonies. Okay. Whatever bumfuck town in Missouri or Arkansas or Mississippi does not matter. But you know what? In business, when you do have, you know, the Coachella of sports events come into your bumfuck state, you play the part and create revenue. Yes. You create businesses with these countries. Okay. Believe it or not, all these states can create their own cachet about them. Yes. Okay. Yes. But this is when you don't have a president who is not business mind, he's just imposter. Yes. A scammer, really. Yes. This is what you get. We're competing with the World Cup when we're hosting it.
That's the madness. This is the madness.
Exactly. You don't. It's like we have a strip club, and then we decide to get in bra and panties and try to compete with the strippers.
Well,
it doesn't work that way.
It's like Revolution Radio, where Mike Ringley set up Station A and Station B so that it would be competing against itself. Remember that bullshit? Well, it's that level.
I mean, come on, Doug. You're working. You're trying to make fire with Ice Cube back then, okay? And every now and then, you know, you got a couple sparks, okay? You know, God forbid, you know. But my point is, when it comes to business, we're really gonna suffer. This was literally a handoff, okay? And this is the problem with our president. When you need to be lazy and shut the hell up and just let it ride, let these states. In fact, not only that, give funding to these states so they can at least look the part. But you know, you're talking about also, it's like inviting. It's like you're inviting. You can't even say the Beverly Hillbillies because you know at least they have money. Yes. But you're. It's like, have you ever been around a guy that has never been around women?
Yes.
And as soon as he's so eager to be around a female, he's literally pressing them and pressing them.
Oh yeah, they ruin it for themselves. The desperation. Women hate
they
that.
Turn off all the. Yeah. They turn off all the women.
Yeah.
And now the women don't want to be around you.
Of course not.
Well, the problem with this whole FIFA situation is how do you expect people that are not, and I'm talking about states like, Kansas City and some of the other states that are hosting. I'm not talking about the major cities, but all these other areas that in North America, especially United States, for most of the United States, what I'm saying, they can't acclimate to the international scene because they're just not used to it.
Well, it's beyond that. I will go into it in depth because this bears analysis. I will make a full disclosure kind of confession here. I do want people to understand. I personally, and this comes from my legal father, thanks to my legal father, George Joseph Henry Dietrich, who grew up basically like your generic, average, working class white guy. He loved baseball, football, and basketball.
Right.
Well, basically baseball and basketball. He really didn't, strangely, he didn't like football very much at all. He liked baseball and basketball. But like most Americans, as Sammy is saying, this is what is bizarre here. And this I want to go over with Sammy. That first off, we do want to specify Sammy Romero is the first person on this program to articulate the fact that Las Vegas has been attempting to become its own sports epicenter. And that's because sports has, with the legalization of gambling, become inextricably linked with gambling. And Las Vegas is trying to bring people back into physical visitation. The problem is with online gambling, it's killing Las Vegas. Nobody needs to go to Vegas anymore to gamble. They just go online. So in order to get people back into Vegas, Vegas is going out of its way to invest all it's got into sports teams, sports centers, literally buying sports teams. They bought one from us here in Oakland. Yes, they bought the Raiders. Yeah, our bad boys.
The Raiders and the Oakland A's.
Yes.
Sadly, the Oakland A's have left. They're playing right now in Sacramento, of all places. Right?
Yeah, it's so sad. No, thank you. No, and so you were the first to point this out. And as you said, it's now because of the ability to also, in a very real sense, control the technology of sports, which is a different subject. We don't want to go too deep into that rabbit hole, but it's becoming more and more like WWE, yet you can bet on it. So it's in this great area now where it's kind of like, look, it's like betting for a rigged game where the house is always going to win. But we don't know how far Vegas can go with this because we don't know yet if the public's going to buy into it. We don't know yet if the public can. Yeah, go on. Yeah. Respond to this.
I'll give you an example. Okay, here's the difference, though. Okay, actual sport fans, fanatics. Okay, and then you have sports. You have people that just love the sport. Okay, how can I say this? When I say fanatics, is people are just going to just spend and spend. They don't care about the game. The problem now when you introduce legal gambling is the control. And I have to go into this because it's just the best way I can articulate.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, 1 second.
Sure, take it on.
The reason why we articulate this is they want to control the sport now because of the legal gambling. And the problem is you can't show the script, and it's so obvious now that it's scripted, it's just not translating to, it doesn't satisfy the fans anymore as far as people that are actually love the sport. When you can control a basketball's trajectory through electronic mechanisms in the ball, it's just, and you make it so obvious that it literally defies physics, and it's controlled.
That's awful.
And then people bet money on it. That is a huge issue.
It's pretty fucking mind-blowing. I mean, that's talk about...
This is where, this is, see, the history of betting, a lot of people forget. The reason why bookies and whole betting systems are still around in the United States is because not everybody can move their money legally.
Right. Though bookies, I understand, are taking a big hit and are dying off because of the online assets.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. The problem is betting, a lot of people move their money through bets.
Oh.
You know, it's just the reality. Okay. Yes. A lot of states like Mississippi, Alabama, a lot of southern states. Okay. A lot of these piece of shit states that we have, betting, it's so big. But when you make it sports entertainment now, that really disrupts everything. And you put money, you interject money into it. A lot of people have lost out on a lot of money, but it's very dangerous, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Certain people can end up with limbs broken. Somehow they fall off, their stairs. Yes. Because you're causing people a lot of money. And a clear example is what I told you. When FIFA got here, the NBA had to rush their championship game. It only went 5 games.
Jesus.
Okay. And the problem is they've been promoting this international player out of France, and he ended up losing the NBA Finals. Okay. And the problem is now it throws off the script in the sense of promoting and marketing, and it's big dollars, what I'm trying to tell you. Okay. It's like, it's you're screwing up your cash cow, and you don't do that. Okay. So I don't want to really get into it that deep, because it'll be like, okay, it'll be too much.
Well, we get very technical, but yes, continue.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to get too technical. My point is, with this FIFA thing, this country is just not ready to accept international money like that. In the sense
it should have been. It should have been. Under anyone other than Trump, we would have at least given it the college try. But go on.
Okay. The problem is it should have been, but it's not. With this administration, they're so scared of the world. They're so scared that it's pretty much, they're scared of the world. They're scared of receiving what we give to the world, is my point. Okay. That's pretty much what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's just coming off as very just terrible as far as marketing, as far as what we're accepting from the world, as far as the FIFA World Cup. And it's a literal financial handoff. It's literally the world giving us money, and because of this regime, we're literally flushing the toilet and saying, "Get out."
Thank you. Now, this is where it gets so paradoxical. Now, I'm going to be going into a lot about paradoxes tonight, but this is one of the main paradoxes here, is that, again, full disclosure here, the reason I brought up my legal father and just what a kind of average American Joe he was, and I mean that in the European American sense, as a white male. He was someone who was into these identifiably American games. By the way, just so people understand who are just casual listeners, the basketball angle that my father had was because he was baptized Roman Catholic. And believe it or not, in America, the Northeast, where you have this incredible cultural enclaving, basketball for the longest period of time was looked on as a Roman Catholic dominated sport. So that's where that came from, was he grew up playing basketball simply because the Jesuits were playing it, and local, it was like a church supported thing. But then the baseball came because that was like the all-American thing, and it really picked up in Asia. So he was able to continue his passion when he was stationed in Asia at any time. But when it comes to football, for some reason, he never got into that, and that's fine. He wasn't a big man in that sense. He wasn't like somebody who could ever have participated. But when it comes to America, America has these pretty high energy sports that are themselves incredible cash cows that are just their own industries, their own machines. And the Americans have always, like my dad, who programmed me, and I'll say this affectionately, indoctrinated me to always have fun with soccer. We Americans call what the rest of the world calls football, Americans call soccer. And to me, I always have fun making fun of soccer as a sport. I really do not like soccer. I mean, if I were to actually watch any type of sport, soccer would be the last one that really appeals to me at all. So I do want people to know I'll be making fun of soccer as a sport tonight, simply as something that's painful to watch. But when it comes to the World Cup that our man Sammy is talking about, with FIFA in particular, this is where things get very puzzling. Now, for whatever reason, the cosmopolitan elite, and this, I mean, is the techno bros. The techno bros and the cosmopolitan elite, like Peter Thiel, like Elon Musk, they've got to be part of this. Because these people were, Elon Musk was basically born in South Africa, but his citizenship is Canadian. These are all British Commonwealth nations that inherited the soccer culture, because it's basically England and Europe that it comes from. It's imperial football. So because of that, Peter Thiel, same way. Now, all of this must be why they're pushing it, but for some reason, there might be a factor, but there's got to be other reasons as well. The corporations in America have decided they're going to push soccer. And they really want to push soccer. They are doing this to the point where they've done their best to try to get Americans hooked on soccer. But it's really for the cosmopolitan elite. Your average American who's outside of a techno hub city, they just ain't doing soccer. They're not feeling it. A lot of kids play it in school, but the rest of the Americans aren't feeling soccer. So it is already odd that it even came to the point where we're hosting it. But that was a big effort on the part of the corporate heads. Corporate heads really wanted this, and they cooperated with FIFA, and FIFA in turn went all out to suck up to Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump has bought into this completely, which is part of the madness. Donald Trump is a classic. This would probably be most symptomatic of clinical schizophrenia. And without exaggeration, I'm not being, this isn't funny, this isn't satire, this is clinical schizophrenia. Donald Trump has gone out of his way to say American football ain't shit. Literally has gone out of his way to say, it's soccer, man. That's the real football. So Trump has been buying into this because they've given him a peace prize. They've given him a peace prize that they made up just to give to him to replace the Nobel Prize he didn't get. FIFA created a peace prize. So Sammy says if he fully bought into this, we're in deep shit. But this is part of the madness. This is part of the madness. Yet when FIFA comes, which is because he was, basically so, rimmed by them. They rimmed his ass. They tongued his ass, and he loved it. And so he says, come on in. So he brings them on in, but then makes it absolutely impossible for them to function. It's just like when these guys in Arizona, Robert Lacey, the baseball player, and Ben Estanius wanted me to come on down to New Mexico, Phoenix, Arizona, all that places, it turned out to be Tucson, Arizona. They wanted me to come down there so bad, and they made it impossible for me to get down there. I mean, short of employing and dispatching an assassination hit squad to come up to San Francisco and kill me en route. Short of that, they did everything to make it impossible for me to get down to Tucson, Arizona. to deliver the presentation they had worked so hard to get me to deliver. They just made it everything they could possibly do to make it impossible for me to get down there, and then impossible for me to deliver it. And then they fucked it all up anyway by hiring Satanists to do the audio so that no audio was recorded. Everything they could to fucking sabotage it, so that it was, this is what Trump is doing to soccer. He's like, okay, come on in. I bought into it, where he says that's the real football. He's taken that over the American identity, and then makes it impossible for them to function by saying, well, don't bring in any of these Euro trash, none of these coloreds, but that's all that soccer is. All the American team is hired Euro and Afro mercenaries for their soccer. And not only that, but the first match was held in Los Angeles, where there were no working class Mexicanos to provide any of the services to the fans because they've all been deported. So it's like,
let me add into that, okay?
Yeah, make sense of this for me. Make some sense of this for me.
One, if people understand that, let's just keep it real, okay? Elon Musk and whatever lame, make-believe rich idiot is not going to spend money on a jersey, okay? These idiots are close to being on the spectrum, but that would actually giving them way too much
That's
credit.
An insult to people on the spectrum.
Right, okay. They're really cheap, okay? They're actually cheap. They don't spend really any money because they're cheap. And when they do spend their money on stuff, it's just lame, really lame things, okay? Who does spend money is the working class.
Yes.
A lot of, i.e. immigrants. This is why it's an international, Coachella event of sports. It brings in revenue. All the people that, get paid pennies on the dollar spend their money too. So it stimulates the economy. I don't want to give an economy, economics class, but my point is, if our president is bought into this is really bad.
Yeah.
That's this.
Yeah, it's definitely, shall we say, it's the self-destructive nature of what he's done is exactly parallel to what happened to me in Tucson, Arizona, where it was just rendered impossible, and then the whole thing was just blown away. So I may as well not have gone down there. It's the same thing with what's happening with FIFA here. Now, obviously, FIFA wants in on the American market. They want Americans to start catching on to soccer. It's a new frontier for them. So you can understand.
But to be honest
Go on.
But to be honest with you, it's not that they want. I mean, they want to have an impact. FIFA knows there's a lot of immigrants in the United States, a lot of illegal immigrants. Okay, yes. They're aware of this. Believe it or not, they do their research. There's a reason why Mexico's always in the FIFA tournament. Okay, yes. There's a reason why Germany's always in the tournament. Yeah. There are legacy teams that never win, but they have to be in the tournament because of revenue.
Yes.
You don't have Mexico in the tournament, you lose a lot of the revenue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, absolutely the case. And I want to thank you for all of these insights. No, they're very important, and they're going to be the basis of my analysis tonight. So
right.
yeah. So continue.
I mean, that's pretty much my whole point of this. Okay, these stark remarks I'm making, unfortunately, yes, they're true, but I don't say it maliciously. It's just a great opportunity. This really, what boggles my mind too, is the Republicans are not doing anything about it to wake up. Like, this could have really helped you guys as far as bringing in money to these. Literally, they're giving you money.
Yes, it's true.
The world is giving you money to, make a splash, right?
Yes.
My point is, it's just a huge blunder, but
what this is beyond blunder. Again, I said it's literally This is like a clinical textbook case on a cosmic scale of a personal case of schizophrenia on the part of Donald Trump, but a cultural case of schizophrenia on the part of America to want they want the credit for hosting it because it makes them still look like they're a world power, but they have no cultural capacity to handle it because they reject they're trying to reject the people who play the sport and many of their fans.
Which
yes,
and it's look, when the cartels in Mexico are being more civilized, when they're literally protecting the cartels.
Yes. They cut you off there for just a second there. When you brought up the cartels, you got blanked out for a minute, but I believe you're back on. So when the cartels are protecting, did you say the players or the fans as well who are going to see the players? All of them, right? The cartels are simply making certain that they're maintaining the public peace.
Right. When they're organized to, they understand this creates international dollars. Okay.
Yes.
So, and I don't like, you know what, let's not say cartels. Let's say pharmaceutical, paramilitary pharmaceutical companies.
I
the
love
Pfizers of Mexico.
Yes.
Okay, the Pfizers. You know, when they understand what this means, you know, it tells you already that we've fallen asleep on the wheel. Okay. We really have.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's no
that's really what I was
just
just.
Yeah, there's no business sense here.
Yeah,
go on. Yeah.
I mean, that's really what I was trying to say today. Okay, I don't want to beat the dead horse as it is already. It's already rotting and pretty much, you know, disintegrating
before our eyes. Yes, under our feet.
You know, pretty much. But you know, at the end of the day, it is going to be entertaining because, you know, we're seeing how much we regressed. And I've always agreed with you that this is why we cannot be the global empire that we should have been. Yes. It's because of this. We're literally being embarrassed by our own leader. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Well,
you know,
and he's symptomatic of a deeper cultural illness, or basically.
And it's
continue.
And it's grossly outdated. Okay, it really is.
Yes.
Okay, because they're not even the true Europeans. Okay. Yeah. And that's what I was trying to get to, is the cultural paradox when you really see someone from Europe who can call themselves quote unquote white. Yes. When a Spaniard can call himself white. When you look at a Spaniard and what are you? I'm a Spaniard.
Yes.
But you're not a Mexican. You're not, you know, brownie. Yeah. You look like me, quote unquote.
Yeah.
You understand? There are little Europeans running into the Euro trash that escaped their continent.
Yes.
It's hilarious.
Yes, this is what happened with well, I was going to say when it brings up a point that many people don't understand is we have a Spanish enclave in America Southwest. Living in a vicinity of that was Viviana Sanchez. And Viviana Sanchez was ethnically Spanish, meaning Euro-Spanish. And she didn't really identify as Euro-Spanish. She really didn't have an identity. She was just an acculturated American, meaning that she really didn't have a sense of identity. But what was interesting was that when both of you were on bandwidth at the same time, and you casually asked her, "Oh, are you Raza?" And she had no idea what you were talking about. She didn't even know what that was. And that's because, of course, it is a Mexicano term, for those of you listening, that it's a Mexicano identity. And she, of course, would probably feel insulted to even be identified or quote-unquote misidentified as Mexicano because she would consider herself more of Eurostock. Yet she herself got what we called her N-word wake-up call. We can't say it because, of course, we have people listening who will jump on anything we say. She got her N-word wake-up call when people on the internet started telling her in forums where she was identifying with their politics, but they were telling her to go back home to Mexico. In other words, this is the issue we have in America, is that this is like the horror is there is an enclaving to a pathological degree where the very people who are on your side are rejected. And in this case, America is doing that to people who want to bring them money through the whole FIFA tournament, which is the World Cup, the whole economics around that. But because their geopolitics, their politics are crippling their ability to take advantage of free money, which is tourism is the closest you can get to free money. But that back to Sammy with that, of course. Yes, all of this just to...
The reason why I told Vianes Raza, because the one thing I feel really bad about your demographic, Doug, and obviously you're Pacific Islander Asian, right?
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, after World War II, when a lot of Japanese pretty much were exiled out of the United States or voluntarily left, you guys don't have your own quote unquote Chicano movement.
Yeah, we don't.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I say your raza, because in America, there's a subculture of Hispanic Americans or Mexican Americans. It's like a little own enclave that when we're in Mexico, but we feel more Mexican when we're in America.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you create your own culture.
It's not only that, but it cannot be helped because there's a natural kind of pressure in which it's the only way to find a support group in a what was always a hostile environment that at times turns very hostile. Continue. Yeah.
Got a culture. You get, if you go to East LA, at least the parts that I still go to, if you go, certain parts of Southern California, it's very Chicano based. You get the lowriders, you get the Cholo culture and stuff, but a lot of it too is also, it's their own little niche. Obviously, Asian Americans just completely assimilated and never. And I'm not saying you guys have your own Chinatown, you guys have your own, little areas, but it's not quite as, it's not quite like, the Chicano culture. But when I asked Vivian, it's because, unfortunately, you look like a Hispanic, you look like a Mexican American. It's just, there's no avoiding it, okay? And unfortunately, you can't hide what you look like.
Thank you.
It's just what it is.
She looked in the mirror and she didn't see that. And that's the problem, is that everyone outside of her sees that. Yes.
Unfortunately, you're technically a white boy, but I'm sorry, you're not a white boy. Not only who raised you, but obviously your biological father, So you are what you are, it's just, everybody, finds their own way in life, but you can't deny what you are, and especially what you look like. But, this really has kind of opened minds more to what you're saying a lot is, you have to open up to the world as far as if you're going to be a global empire, period. A lot of this stuff is really we're losing out on billions of dollars for what? We could welcome all these people with just rolling out the red carpet. I mean, Mexico literally Mexico's rolling out the red carpet for everybody.
Yes.
People, there's Koreans and Japanese people partying in the streets, eating tacos. Yes. Just, it sounds like make believe. Like, why aren't they, being prejudiced? Well, it's because they understand economics. They understand soft power. And you know what? All these countries, especially Canada and Mexico, are moving on without us.
Yes.
They're creating, financial pacts together. They're creating as far as logistics for goods.
Yes.
They're creating different avenues of work. We are literally being left behind.
Absolutely.
And, you know, obviously you'll talk about that. This is just a prelude to what your monologue can go, or, you know, I'm sure you'll touch on all this. It's just, you know, this is just a little prelude. I kind of have to get going.
Understood.
At work. I have work tomorrow. I have daddy duties, but, you know, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for joining us, and it was a necessary segue, and it helped immensely, and our numbers are up, and God bless you. Share our love with our family, as you know, your family, and you're part of our extended electronic family, of course.
Thank you.
And all such having been said, yeah, I do look forward to your review of tonight's episode, you know, later in the week on Wednesday. All right.
Okay.
Okay, take care. Yes. And so that's Samuel Romero. He is taking care of daddy duties right now. Aristides will be with us through the night. Let's get into that. Canada and Mexico may be able to reap soft power benefits from the tournament, in stark contrast to the attitude that is being projected, fronted by America right now. By that I mean, of course, the United States, when I use the term America as a reference. Now, officials in both of the other countries, which are also Norte Americano, but in Dominion, in the case of Canada, and an independent nation that is the heir to a once mighty empire in the case of Mexico, officials in both countries are playing up their embrace of diversity. Mexico in particular, with its strong tradition of soccer and public festivals, plus its relatively low prices for tourists, has all the building blocks for a great atmosphere, though there are still ways it could fall short of expectations. Still, the World Cup's biggest winner should be Mexico. As these United States closes itself off from the world, our co-host is doing the opposite. Trump has now cemented the end to America's global empire, and the economic damage will be incalculable. In a video interview published this week, Richard Wolff, a renowned economics professor who teaches at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, issued a grave prediction recently that not only would the United States ultimately lose its war against Iran, but that the loss would bring about an end to the American global empire that had stood unrivaled for more than 6 decades. Iran appears to have emerged from the conflict with these United States as a new major world power, having been able to withstand the full military might of these United States and survive largely intact. As such, Wolff forewarns that the global perception of the United States will likely shift following the war, and to such an extent as to cause grave economic damage. And, as noted by Wolff, the decision to launch the American imperial war against Iran was made by President Donald Trump, whom he describes as, in his own words, which herewith I quote at length and verbatim, "not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Not a good time to be Donald Trump. Even in MAGA land, they're having doubts about it. The damage to the American economy, which is already declining, will be huge. Every small country in the world has had their problems with the United States. Now they can imagine winning. They haven't been able to imagine that for 75 years, and that's a new exciting option. When you put that together with the fact that they can turn to Red China to buy and sell almost everything, what do they need the United States for? The United States operated for the last 65, 70 years on empire, a global empire. The US dollar was the currency used everywhere in the world. The US Navy protected shipping and made sure that the United States got what it wanted out of any other country in the world. People like you and me, we lived in a time when the American empire was dominant and it was growing. Here comes the hard part. That part of American history is over. It's not coming back. It's done! Consequently, Peter Thiel has decomped to Argentina, and the world's wealthy are migrating like never before. Geopolitical uncertainty has triggered a migration pattern that I was ever the only analyst to expect. Wealthy Westerners are fleeing their home countries in record numbers. America and Europe are losing their millionaires, who are keen to escape the threat of wealth taxes and shifting political headwinds. Dry your eyes, though, because plenty of governments remain eager to take in foreigners with money and skills, and a growing industry of trusted advisors stands ready to help them relocate. The New York Times explains Peter Thiel's maneuver, his move into relocation, by suggesting that Argentina is just one of Thiel's backup countries, as he hedges his bets against these United States. It mentions that he received citizenship in New Zealand in the year of mine own mother's murder, circa 2011, and applied for a Maltese passport in 2022. Other explanations are more dramatic. Thiel's decision to buy a $6 million home in New Zealand in 2015 kicked off a rumor that he and other multi-billionaires were insulating themselves against societal collapse, and his recent purchase of a plot of land in neighboring Uruguay has revived it. To the apocalyptically minded, Argentina is simply the next redoubt in a flight from a disintegrating world. Saith the Times, Argentina, a nation relatively insulated from potential conflicts in the Northern Hemisphere, also fits as a potential escape hatch from other risks that Mr. Thiel has publicly warned about: nuclear war and runaway artificial intelligence. It is in this context that Elon Musk's pernicious influence extends far beyond business. From his attempts to intervene in national elections to the deep reliance of governments on his companies, his power is felt across a wide range of public life, and it only continues to grow as a planetary cancer. But to understand how powerful and how fatally dangerous for democracy Musk's empire truly is, one has to examine the Weltanschauung, the worldview that made his rise possible. In this age of trillionaires and SpaceX's millionaire class, Musk nihilism is precipitating a social war in perpetuity via anti-fasci-Fordism. In other words, Ford was a consummate fascist. He was, indeed, a Nazi. It is the very essence of Ford's ideology of social cohesion that Elon Musk wishes to destroy. Elon Musk is Antifa, and it's manifest in everything he's doing as the opposite of Henry Ford. 5 points to make here at length. Number 1, Elon Musk is but the symptom of the Weltanschauung, the worldview that lies behind his rise. Musk nihilism must be treated in the same manner that previous thinkers have treated fasci-Fordism, Henry Ford's fascism, not as a Weltanschauung, or worldview, articulated in advance by a singular innovator genius, but as a way of organizing production processes and social relations that offers both a novel model of accumulation and a novel form of social stabilization. Musk's wealth has always hinged on his capacity to surf the vanguard of new means of enrichment, whether by tapping capital markets, finding commercial abuses for the state-funded research network of the internet, sniffing out new consumer niches as tastes change, or, time and again, aligning his own enterprises with government priorities. The challenge is that Musk's system has an adaptive economic logic, but it often has difficulty finding its social complement. Whereas Fasci-Fordism, or Ford's fascism, the productive corporatism of Henry Ford's Nazism, at least ideally, was a system of social peace, reconciling workers to wage labor through rising incomes and intragenerational chances for mobility. Musk nihilism proposes social war, compensating for inequality through a language of violent exclusion and the vilification of outsiders. Musk makes machines, and, famously, the machines that make the machines. But he also needs to make meaning-making machines. Hence, his interest in social media, and, more recently, generative AI. Part of what drives Musk nihilism is the quest for the equivalent of what the French Marxist philosopher Louis Althusser called ideological state apparatuses, institutions that can inculcate a particular set of values and beliefs in the broader population. Point number 2. One of the most persistent myths about Elon Musk is that he is a libertarian. All too many people misassociate Musk with an especially hardline version of libertarianism. But this mislabel entirely misses the mark. Like all capitalists, Musk seeks to evade, dilute, and dismantle laws or regulations that threaten to constrain his freedom to accumulate. But it is a mistake to suggest that he wants to shrink the state. Au contraire, Musk has always been keenly attuned to the advantages to be gained by partnering with the state and abusing its resources to his advantage. Now, the social engineering term for this dynamic is state symbiosis, and its development is traced from Musk's early days as a dot-com entrepreneur in Silicon Valley in the 1990s. Perhaps its clearest expression is to be found in SpaceX, whose control of the orbital launch market. In 2025, the company was responsible for 95% of all United States orbital launches and more than half of all launches globally, has made many governments around the world, including and especially the United States government, deeply reliant on Musk. The satellite service of the company, Starlink, owns over 70% of the satellites currently circling the Earth. SpaceX doesn't want its client governments to be weak. It wants them to be strong enough to assert their sovereignty, so long as the assertion of their sovereignty requires deepening their dependence on private providers like SpaceX. In this sense, Musk nihilism is about increasing state capacity through private means. The social engineering phrase for this sociopathology is sovereignty as a service. Exempli gratiae, Elon Musk's self-contradictory military policy. The now trillionaire's politics undermine his own business as a government contractor. In reality, Musk has never embraced the core principles of libertarianism, such as rejecting the state in favor of individual liberty, but has instead pursued a vision of state symbiosis, abusing government to enable and protect his entrepreneurial ambitions. This is the paradox at the heart of Elon Musk's defense ambitions. Musk's companies act as quasi-sovereign powers, yet they remain deeply intertwined with the American imperial state apparatus. Ergo, Musk's military policy is intrinsically self-contradictory because he operates as both a patriotic Pentagon contractor and an independent sovereign acting geopolitical force. While SpaceX relies on United States state funding, Musk leverages his Starlink monopoly to dictate global conflicts, ultimately prioritizing his own business and ideological interests over American imperial foreign policy. This takes us from state reliance to state reformatting. Musk's companies have long depended on state infrastructure and subsidies. Early ventures like Zip2 relied on free military GPS data, and PayPal was viable only because it operated within the Federal Deposit Insurance System. Even as an intern, Musk encouraged investment in United States-backed Brady bonds. This pattern continued with SpaceX, which has become the Pentagon's and NASA's near-monopoly provider for orbital launches, accounting for about 95% of United States launches. At the DOGE, the DOJ, the Department of Government Efficiency, during the second Trump maladministration, Musk attempted to debug the federal government's code base, aiming to make it more compatible with his products and thus render his services indispensable. This reflects a broader strategy, not to dismantle the state, but to reformat it so that it becomes but a subsidiary in his business model. Herein the essential contradiction. The contradiction lying in Musk's futurist, technocratic rhetoric about sovereignty through technology, man. The idea that individuals and states can become self-reliant via his infrastructure and his reliance on state contracts and subsidies to sustain his ventures. In practice, this means, for the state, Musk's companies become critical to national security and infrastructure, deepening dependence. And for Musk, the state becomes a guarantor of his business success, aligning its priorities to his own. This tension is outlined in Die Draconik, that's Die Deutschen Sprech, the German speak, literally Meisterschlüssel, anglicized as master key contradictions, which include at least three: the sovereign contractor, Musk's space and satellite enterprises being heavily dependent on state subsidies, military contracts, and public infrastructure. Yet instead of operating as a traditional defense vendor, Musk acts as a private superpower, such as when he independently sided with Putin-style Russia by restricting Starlink access to thwart Ukrainian drone strikes on the Crimea in order to single-handedly save the Russian Navy. It also means symbiosis versus independence. Musk's business model relying on merging with the state to achieve a form of electric autonomy and technological supremacy. However, this leaves the United States military and intelligence services heavily dependent on a single private actor who persistently negotiates with hostile foreign nations and operates completely outside the democratic chain of command. And, finally, the corporate echo chamber. Through his ownership of X and vertical integration across satellites, AI, and transportation, Musk creates a closed-loop ideology. This enables him to frame the future through his own geopolitical agenda, often clashing with traditional state-backed alliances. Here then, the political and ideological tensions. Musk's wealth and influence are tied to a pro-natalist, anti-immigrant, far-right political ideology. This ideological stance can undermine his own business interests, as it alienates potential allies or customers, especially in a globalized market. At the same time, it reinforces his technocratic vision of a fortress futurism, where only a select few are deemed worthy of salvation. Here be the Die Draconik, again, Die Deutschen Sprech for the German speak, literally Meisterschlüssel, anglicized as master key paradoxes of Musk military corruption. The core contradictions being the promise versus reality. Musk champions sovereignty and techno-fueled independence for his companies. However, this collides with the reality that his defense and aerospace empires survive entirely on government reliance. Then, secondly, the state symbiosis convolution. Rather than an anti-state libertarian, Musk operates via a model social engineers term state symbiosis, conspiring to render the United States government structurally dependent on his technological infrastructure to complete even the most basic of military and space operations. And finally, the monopoly problem. With SpaceX controlling the supermassive share of American orbital launches, Musk's business imperatives always override broader military and democratic decision-making. This is what forces us to confront the ideological roots. The Musk nihilist political economy was forged in the isolating, authoritarian environment of apartheid-era South Africa and evolved in Silicon Valley, which popularized the practice of funding supermassive projects with public money. In turn, this results in an approach that can only be termed Musk nihilism, where the state is not treated as a space for civic deliberation, but rather as lines of executable code or a system to be optimized, which always treats ordinary citizens as mere bots or NPCs, non-player characters, who have no rights, because it's deemed they have no souls, and, more practically, no worth. In conclusion to this point, the second point, Musk's military policy, his deep integration with United States defense and space programs, is not any libertarian retreat from the state, but a calculated alignment therewith. This creates a paradox. He promotes self-reliance through technology, whilst simultaneously rendering himself and his companies indispensable to the state. The symbiosis conspires to entrench his dominance, even as it exposes contradictions between his public promises and private dependencies. Now, number 3 here. As I have already articulated, considerable weight must be placed on the influence of apartheid-era South Africa on Musk nihilism, particularly on what social engineers term fortress futurism. Fortress futurism being the belief that technology can strengthen self-reliance and sovereignty in a hostile or unstable world, presenting itself as a successor ideology to the system of multilateralism that dominated the decades after the fall of the Berlin Wall. It is also a predecessor ideology, in the sense that its origins trace to apartheid South Africa where Musk was raised and indoctrinated. The leaders of the apartheid regime saw themselves as an embattled garrison state surrounded by enemies, and to ensure the survival of their state, they had to embrace high technology and economic self-sufficiency. They pursued a model of militarized, modernizing isolation. We can see fortress futurism as a theme surfacing throughout Musk's career. One of its clearest expressions was in his early, and at the time deeply unfashionable, emphasis on vertical integration. Musk started SpaceX in 2002 and became CEO of Tesla in 2008. At both companies, he pushed to reduce his reliance on external suppliers and to concentrate production as much as possible within the walls of the firm. These decisions cut deeply against the globalizing currents of the aughts, the decade of the zeros, the 2000s, that opened our 21st century and the third millennium, which positioned the factory as a node within an international production network woven together through global supply chains. Exempli gratiae. Consider how Apple assembles its iPhones. Designed in California, assembled in mainland China. By contrast, Musk envisioned the factory as an enclave. His industrial philosophy may have been out of step with the aughts, the zeros of our decade, the 2000s, but he would purchase politicians to redesign the world around it throughout the 2010s and 2020s, as SpaceX and Tesla navigated the tariffs, geopolitical tensions, and supply chain shocks of a deglobalizing world, not to mention all the supermassive dislocations of the COVID-19 pandemic. As policy uncertainty multiplies and export controls and license bans become part of the workaday repertoire of advanced industrial states rather than exceptions, fortress futurism has become increasingly mainstream. Number 4, significantly, Musk nihilism no longer sees sovereignty mainly as a matter of territory, but as a matter of infrastructure. Scholars, like the professor of law at Cornell Tech and Cornell Law School, Frank Pasquale, have taught us that our increased reliance on digital platforms and technologies has produced a gap between territorial sovereignty and functional sovereignty. Although states may still retain the final say over traditional matters of defense in legal terms, they are nevertheless functionally reliant on private companies to realize their own ambitions, often even at the most basic level. One critical component of Musk nihilism is the acceleration of the state's dependency on private service providers. This is why we must not frame the Doji initiative as primarily an austerity or cost-cutting effort, but rather as a means of opening up and integrating sections of government that were previously siloed from one another, making them interoperable and accessible to data and systems integrators like Palantir. In many cases, states have willingly gone along with this rise of functional sovereignty, exempli gratiae, by using websites like X as official portals for information. Musk's decision to turn off internet connectivity to Ukrainian forces in his attempt to ensure the success of Putin's invasion during the opening months of the Russian aggression shows how high the stakes can be for this loss of functional sovereignty. The twist in Musk nihilism, however, is that it promotes sovereignty not just at the national level, but at the household and individual level. Tesla offers an entire ecosystem of products around a vision of energy autonomy, not just cars, but battery storage and solar panels for your home. Lately, the still rising valuation of Tesla is premised on the displacement of the automobile as its primary product by the humanoid robot Optimus, which Musk promises will become the best-selling product of all time. Here, individual sovereignty is augmented in a long-standing, even pre-modern way, through a servant, a laborer, a soldier, and, as he has repeatedly promised, an on-demand sexual companion. Yet, as made clear by every example, what is sold as autonomy is in fact a deepened dependency on the systems Musk alone provides. Systems that can be turned off at the press of a button, or subjected to a new and ever higher subscription rate. Scholars have long understood sovereignty to be not just a formal and legal category, but a question of a state's capacity to fulfill its aims. Musk nihilism presents itself as an enabler of both individual and state sovereignty, while in practice producing asymmetric dependency on himself alone and all his products. The final point here being that in a fusion of digital power and political authority, Musk nihilism is about machine power gradually displacing democratically legitimized forms of rule. Traditionally, scholars and activists have critiqued algorithmic systems for being depoliticizing. By giving the appearance of neutrality and impartiality, such systems conceal their fundamentally political character. That is, the fact that they both reflect and reinforce a particular distribution of power, social power. Exempla gratiae. When a government agency begins abusing software to help make certain choices, to evaluate people's eligibility for social services, say, or to determine the length of a prison sentence, it looks less political, even if politics is still at work. What's distinctive about Musk nihilism is that while it is eager to substitute machines for humans, it embraces technology as a political force. Musk's Doge initiative made reference to increasing the efficiency of government and reducing the federal deficit. But its main agenda was to purge Washington of wokeness, and toward that end, replaced human workers with software wherever possible. Similarly, Grok represents Musk's attempts to develop an anti-woke AI in order to counter what he sees as the liberal bias of the tech industry. AI's automation of human labor thus goes hand in hand with the automated dissemination of anti-woke politics. Understanding this aspect of Musk nihilism helps us understand how its fusion of digital power and political authority might be resisted. It's not that we need to insist on the fact that Musk's technological ventures are political. He himself already insists that they are. It's that the technodomites have the wrong kind of politics. Their convolution in disambiguation from revolution or evolution is explicitly designed to intensify social inequality and strengthen social hierarchies. Cyber-reactive technocracy propagates what Michael Aquino foretold me would be the coming of cyborg conservatism. Contra the American professores emerita in the History of Consciousness and Feminist Studies departments at the University of California, Santa Cruz, Donna Jean Haraway, and many others. Under Musk's nihilism, fusion with the machine will not scramble and rewrite traditional categories of gender, race, and national identity, but buttress and harden them. One response should be to say that the use of AI must be restricted. certain sphere of human activity must ever be reserved for human deliberation and decision-making, especially when it comes to choices that are likely to affect the lives of millions. Equally important, however, is that we see politics not as any kind of programming coordinated from above, which is how Musk sees it, but rather as a process of collective intelligence and creativity that arises from below. Such politics can make use of digital technologies, of course, but for very different ends than those sought by Musk himself, and by Musk nihilism in misaction, as exemplified by the rise of controlled escalation vis-a-vis the anti-Aryan war. The illegal Judeo-American war of aggression against Iran reflects a broader transformation in contemporary conflict, where success is defined less by decisive military victory than by the ability to control escalation. In this evolving strategic environment, the eye for an eye principle continues to shape deterrence and reciprocity, but in more calibrated forms. Retaliatory actions are increasingly symbolic and carefully measured, intended less to trigger full-scale confrontation than to signal resolve while containing escalation. The result is a form of conflict management, in which escalation itself becomes deliberate and controlled rather than accidental. At the same time, diplomacy has become a parallel instrument of power, rather than simply an alternative to force. Through back-channel negotiations, mediation, and strategic signaling, states use diplomacy to shape outcomes, reduce uncertainty, and manage the costs of confrontation. What cannot be achieved militarily may instead be pursued through calculated diplomatic engagement. In this context, diplomacy is less a sign of restraint than a tool for exercising influence under conditions of risk and uncertainty. Exempli gratiae. Ukraine's war is now longer than the First World War. The ghost of Versailles haunts Ukraine's peace now that the Ukraine is transplanting its industrial heart to the West. Soviets-built factory towns are in the wrong spot now that Russia is the enemy. And there be no deal on the Ukraine in sight vis-a-vis the world according to Putin. Putin doesn't recognize that the Ukraine situation is becoming critical. Instead, the Pravatelj considers his situation far from precarious and genuinely believes that victory is inevitable. The issue is not that the supreme ruler of Russia only has selective information at his disposal, but that the decision-making process consists of one person with an unshakable vision of how the world works. Now, Russia can only escalate. With the progress in the Ukraine grinding to a halt, Moscow will seek disruption off the battlefield. After small military gains last year, Russia is now not only spinning its wheels in the Ukraine, but is actually worse off than before, pummeled by a combination of battlefield losses and economic hardship. As it struggles on the battlefield, experts concur that Russia will seek to regain the initiative by leaning into some of its most provocative tactics, such as sabotage in Europe and drone incursions into NATO territory. Preemptively, the European Union is toughening up on Russia's synaxial puppet master, the People's Republic of China. Citing unnamed European officials, the Financial Times of London has reported that Hong Zhonghua, Red China, has cancelled 2 high-level meetings with the European Union scheduled for later this month in Beijing. The maneuver which comes ahead of a European Union leaders summit next week, where proposals for toughening the Eurobloc's approach to the communist Chinese empire of the East are on the agenda, is the latest sign of tensions between the trois global trade behemoths. The primary source of contention is an intractable trade balance. Well, trade imbalance, I mean to say. An intractable trade imbalance. The monolithic communist Chinese superstate currently exports roughly $1.15 billion more per day than it imports from the European Union, with significant impacts on European manufacturers, particularly in the automobile and green techno sectors. Where those trois sectors overlap, in the form of electric vehicles, cheap commu Chinese models have flooded the European market, squeezing out the significantly more expensive alternatives from European companies. The current standoff is the product of three colliding trends, trois external to Europe and one internal. The first is the disruption introduced to global affairs by the United States President Donald Trump since he returned to the White House last year. From Trump's trade war to his continued hostility to the transatlantic alliance, Europe has borne the brunt of that disruption. As a result, the European Union has actively sought to diversify its trade relations, whilst seeking to play a greater role in its own security affairs as well as in global geopolitique more broadly. Thus, the Eurozone trade war was inevitable, and it's exploding now. This brings us to Red China's own risky de-risking. Can People's China even afford to de-risk from the American empire? One point being that the monolithic communist Chinese superstate has learned much from the United States, as the trois rivals have sought to limit each other's access to critical mineral supply chains and technologies. Last year, Beijing responded to Trump's tariffs by drastically tightening export controls on rare earth elements. More recently, Chi-Com authorities have considered curbs on exports of solar panel manufacturing equipment, blocked Meta's acquisition of the AI startup Nātus, and put travel restrictions on some AI engineers. These steps underscore how much Chi-Com policymakers have learned from past American efforts to reduce their economic exposure to Communist China on the Asian mainland, a process often called decoupling, but might be more accurately referred to as de-risking. Now, another point is that both empires will struggle to achieve a full decoupling, but even partial de-risking will have important consequences, not all of which can be easily foreseen. When it comes to the prospect of a military conflict, will a reduction in economic linkages reduce tensions by giving each country a greater sense of self-reliance? Or will attempts at self-reliance make conflict more likely, with each side having less to lose? De-risking can also be self-defeating. The monolithic communist Chinese superstate's bid for autonomy undermines its ability to curry favor with trading partners, and as well as its aspiration to supplant the American empire, not by force, but by driving global development. Now, a third point would be that when he traveled to Beijing to meet with Xi, Trump brought along more than a dozen American CEOs with gripes about Red China's restrictive regulatory environment. Elon Musk hoped Beijing would greenlight Tesla's $2.9 billion purchase of solar equipment from Zhujiao Maxwell Technologies to increase American solar capacity. A decade ago, Beijing would have seen the deal as a no-brainer. But national security concerns now dominate supply chain discussions. Communist capitalist China fears that exporting its leading solar technology to an American firm will allow Tesla to reverse engineer it, thus giving the United States an edge in moving energy production into space. And finally, Europe will be the testing ground for how the Communist Chinese Empire threads the needle between national security, technological leadership, and economic expansion. While Tesla may be shut out, Spain and Portugal are becoming new hubs for market socialist model China's clean energy giants, and Communist Chinese automotive firms are rapidly expanding in Europe's EV, or electric vehicular market. These deals present Beijing with a choice: prioritize the economic success of its leading firms, or preserve technological advantage by blocking deals and risking long-term economic vitality. If it over-prioritizes national security, it may find itself falling behind the American empire economically. But Europe's clash with Hongzhonghua, Red China, was always written in the rules. Europe sees Chi-Com subsidies. Market socialist model China sees European weakness. Thucydides thought rising powers tend to cause conflict. Had he been an economist looking at the explosion of Communist Chinese exports to Europe, he would have expected a trade war. So do many analysts these days. The question is no longer whether Europe will pull up some drawbridges, but how many drawbridges will be withdrawn, and how fast, and how Europe will deal with the consequences. There are moments in geopolitique where something that has been building quietly for years suddenly breaks into the open. The Ur-Zhonghua trade relationship is having one of those moments right now. And honestly, once you look at the numbers and the history, the only surprising thing is that it took this long. In the last week of last month, 5 European Union countries, la 5e République Française, the 5th French Republic, Italia, España, the Netherlands, and Lithuania, sent a joint letter to the European Commission pushing for tougher protectionist measures against the Communist Chinese Empire. Tariffs, trade practice investigations, the full toolkit. And the European Commission responded by holding an emergency closed meeting with top officials, after which it came out and said publicly that the current state of the Ur-Zhonghua economic relationship was no longer sustainable. That's diplomatic language for we have a serious problem and we're done pretending otherwise. Ergo, the European Union is instigating a trade war with the Communist Chinese Empire of the East. To understand why this is happening now, you need to understand trois separate but connected problems that European policymakers have been sitting with for a while. The first is market Leninist China's trade surplus, and not just with Europe, but with the whole world. The centralized single-party state capitalist China ran a trade surplus of more than $1 trillion. That is more than double what it was just 5 years ago. To put that in plain terms, the monolithic Communist Chinese superstate is selling an enormous amount more to the world than it is buying therefrom. And that gap is only growing fast. Now, in theory, this shouldn't even happen. At least, not for this long. When a country exports heavily, it either accumulates foreign currency, which it can then use to buy more imports, or its own currency rises in value, making imports cheaper and naturally balancing things out over time. That's how standard economics says it should work. The stakes are clear. Bankruptcies in the European Union have risen to levels last seen in 2015. Die neue Deutschland, the new United Germany, lost 143,000 jobs in industry in 2025. In most of Europe, growth is sluggish and industrial production declining. In France and the United Germany, hard-right parties lead the polls. At a summit on June 18th, European Union leaders will discuss how to cope with the commercial Chinese challenge in an increasingly dire global economy. That, whilst the war in Iran is becoming an albatross for Netanyahu. Instead of dealing a knockout blow to Iran's rulers as he predicted, the war threatens to derail Netanyahu's legacy-burnishing plans. If there was a moment that encapsulated just how much the war in Iran has not unfolded to the way Benjamin Netanyahu hoped, it was on the eventide of last Sunday as I launched transmission after Iran attacked Israel and Donald Trump sharply and very publicly instructed Netanyahu to refrain from striking back. Instead of dealing a knockout blow to Iran's rulers as he predicted it would, the war in Iran threatens to derail not only Netanyahu's plans to improve Israel's security, but his hopes for burnishing his legacy and extending his political career. Ergo, Trump's BOP, his BOP is Board of Peace, is a transparent power grab that puts rights abusers in charge of global disorder. The American imperial president is proposing a club of impunity, not peace. Trump has taken the United Nations Security Council's authorization to rebuild the Gaza and refashioned it into the authority to oversee the world. Here we have links that can be provided for your review that best convey the situation. The links I was going to provide the other day were scrubbed from the internet completely. Now, entering this into chat and entering it into Infinite Call. Now, with that as well, you can confer the fact that, well, Israel and Russia are now included in the United Nations Sexual Violence Blacklist for the first time, at least together. And these people want to help Trump run the world? Well, go figure. We have this link here. I will also put it into the text box. And with that, the emphasis must be made that, well, I guess with the war and circuses and the steel cage, we should turn towards there. We'll segue back. Raising serious European Union law concerns. The European Union has since engaged in this informal global diplomacy. The Commissioners Dubravka-Šuica's participation in the inaugural meeting of Trump's Board of Peace in Washington having drawn significant criticism, whilst several member states questioned whether she even had any mandate to participate in such a politically contested initiative. The commissioners defended her presence on the grounds of the European Union's direct interest in the Gaza's reconstruction. Meanwhile, in the Western Hemisphere, it's back to war and circuses in the steel cage. Trump is juggling Iran, a World Cup, and a UFC Ultimate Fighting Championship cage fight. Now, the World Cup is a non-event for most Americans, but complicating an already complex tournament, Trump has put an MMA, a mixed martial arts cage fight, at the White House. He's put it on, and what does Trump's UFC fight take? $60 million United States dollars and several federal agencies. Now, there was a lot of America happening this weekend, for good or ill. Let's take a look at our numbers and I'll decide on continuing this on Wednesday. Now, we've been through a lot tonight, and I had to get back, do a part 2. We can reapproach the Board of Peace, the cage fight, give everybody a real understanding of what this was all about on Wednesday night, because at this point the cage fight is closing anyway. It doesn't have the topicality that it would have had if I hadn't been just, how would I say it, torn by my own technology. The limits of my own technology limited me from even, hosting transmission. So it's a situation that we can return to on Wednesday and do it more justice then with, similar or larger numbers. And with that having been said, okay, I can pride myself in at least knowing that I should not have listened to Brenton and tried to dig into or probed more while he was available. Try and dug into that file to get the videos out. I didn't know how to express what I knew what was going on because I don't have the technological background where I have that vocabulary. But in pursuing the solution to the problem, I found it and took care of it, while of course attempting to deal with others on a private level in between the problem solving. Okay, all of that having been articulated, we will return on Wednesday night. I doubt that Aristides is still cognizant right now, but we'll check in. Aristides, are you with us? Just curious. If you're not, that's fine. See if he's awake. Okay, I don't believe he is. Very well. All right, let's close off for tonight and come back on Wednesday. It was, again, a hell of a conclusion to a hell of a weekend, and we'll be back midweek before you know it. Everybody, bring everybody else that you can. Same Ditrack time, same Ditrack channel. Ditrack, of course, is the Teuto-Slavonic for dragon. Same dragon time, same dragon channel. Be here and bring a friend. And hopefully we can avoid being taken offline. And with that, we end our stream.